Hey guys, I wanted to do just a quick overview of some of the old game consoles and stuff that I have in my collection. I haven't gotten this completely organized yet, but I have a new set of shelves here, and I have a bunch of old game consoles. So yeah, let's take a look at these. So I don't know, let's start at the bottom. Down here we have an old 16-bit Sega Genesis, terrific platform. Notable games I liked on here were Toe Jam and Earl, Sonic the Hedgehog, and what else? Mortal Kombat, right? Some good games for that thing. Great memories of a terrific console. I like the Super Nintendo better, but this was still pretty excellent. Nintendo 64, a lot of good times with this. You know, Mario 64, you know, Zelda Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, and you know, a bunch of other things, Jet Force Gemini, GoldenEye, all the good stuff, right? You know, moving up here, we have some kind of newer stuff. Got my Xbox 360 here. I believe this is the slim one. A lot of great games on this thing. Played through Halo games, Mass Effect, Fable 2 and 3. A lot of fun times on this thing. This thing, you know, gave me some much needed entertainment at a time when I definitely needed it. Absolutely love this thing. Not using it much these days. It's kind of stored away, and I'm using other stuff now, but definitely something I'm kind of holding on to here. You notice I got my dusty old Xbox 360 controller, and I got a few Switch Pro controllers here right next to it. They look very similar. Just like, you know, on the Switch, you had like your A button here, B button down here. Those are kind of reversed on the, you know, on the Xbox controller. And yeah, same thing with the X and Y buttons. They just did it backwards, right? So yeah, over here, all right, rumble pack and memory cartridge all in one for the N64 down here. And what else? We got I have this PlayStation light gun over here. I have not used that. This is just something I found. Someone was getting rid of it and I picked it up. Really neat thing. Would be kind of fun to use it at some point. I don't know if I ever will. I also picked up this Neo Geo thing. Has a bunch of old games I'm not too familiar with. Not a whole lot of sentimental value here, but it was a really neat thing that I picked up. It is pretty cool. This isn't one of the ancient Neo Geos from like the early 90s or whatever, or whenever it is they came out, but this is a much newer thing. Apparently I had to look it up, but yeah, I basically just found this thing. Someone was getting rid of it. Over here, my original Nintendo Switch. This is not the OLED version, but this is the original that cost about $300. This one was damaged and no longer works. So I'm gonna pan right over here real quick without showing any of the stuff on my computer screen at the moment. I have 3 modern OLED switches over here, one for myself, a couple for my kids there. And I'm gonna pan right back over here to my shelves. And yeah, so next shelf up from the Neo Geo and stuff, we have a few interesting things here. Let's start from the right and go to the left. So we got my GameCube here. This was basically like a better version of the N64, better graphics, more power, all that stuff. Very similar to the N64, just a better next generation console compared to that. You know, no gimmicks or anything like with the Wii or anything like that. One big difference was that it takes mini CDs instead of cartridges, which I actually think is kind of a downgrade. I think cartridges are better, although the cartridges used for the N64 apparently can't hold as much data as the CDs for this, so it was a better choice at the time. But yeah, and it had a really interesting controller. I'll show you that when we get over to my other cabinet. But yeah, this was a terrific console, and yeah, it was great. I played some excellent games on here, including like Wind Waker and Twilight Princess, and some other stuff. There's like Mario Sunshine and a few other things. So over here, the Ouya, I think is how you'd say it. Yeah, this was not very long lived. Yeah, this thing, this is an Android-based console. It was supposed to be the next great thing, but it was generally geared towards casual gaming, not like serious, real gaming. Yeah, so this doesn't have any like real serious games. Didn't have like that great content, just really simple casual stuff, nothing that great or compelling that would make you want to play it. It's great if you want casual gaming on the TV with a controller and, you know, a simple little Android based console. You could get games and stuff off of their store that they had, but you could also sideload Android applications and stuff. By today being like, this year was 2024. I think this was back in like, I forget what year it was, 2011, 2012, something like that. It was way back there. It's been a long time, but you know, by today's standards, this is a really weak Android device. But yeah, it was okay for playing some casual games on an Android device connected to your TV if that's what you wanted, right? But yeah, so basically not that many compelling games for it, and the company was they you know, they hyped it up a lot. It seemed like it was going to be pretty great. I think I paid close to $100 for this, but I think the company was actually bought out by Razer, and then Razer scrapped this project for their own, you know, because it competes with their own products as far as I know. But yeah, anyway, so it came to a death, which was kind of sad, but it never really took off and had great games for it. It would have been nice if they had, you know, a killer app or a killer game for it, but they didn't. It was kind of a neat platform. I have the controller for it around somewhere. I don't know if I'll find that today. I'll have to dig it up. But yeah, so much smaller than the GameCube. GameCube was way better console. I have one of the controllers for the GameCube, a couple controllers for it in my other cabinet. I'll see if I can show those to you. So set that over here, and this is a PS1. So original PlayStation, but this is like a slimline version of it. But yeah, slimline version of the original PlayStation. And yeah, this CD door does not properly, I'm going to come back to that and close that correctly after the video. The latch on it has some issues, but yeah, I used this to play Final Fantasy 7, 8, and 9, and a few other games too. It was a great console, love it. I liked my N64 better, but this was like basically the you know, the PlayStation equivalent of the N64. And yeah, pretty terrific console. I like Zelda more than Final Fantasy, but you know, I wouldn't really compare them. They're both excellent games. So you know, it's not really like you could say one is better than the other. But in any case, over here I have a Wii. Now, I played a few different games on this. I bought this used from GameStop some years ago. I really bought it. The only reason I really bought this was to I purchased this to play Zelda Skyward Sword, and I did for a while. And one of the problems with this console is it does not have HDMI output, but you can get a little adapter that does give you HDMI output, and so you can still play on it. And I think my controllers for this are packed away. I'm not going to be able to show them to you today. So this console came after the GameCube, and this one was definitely much different because you know, you had these motion controls. It wasn't a traditional gamepad like with the GameCube and the N64 and the PlayStation. This was a, you know, radical departure, and it was very different. Very you know, this is I think one of Nintendo's best-selling consoles ever. It sold so much, it was wildly popular. But yeah, one problem with this is that it does not take it does not have HDMI, so if you get the Wii U instead of the Wii, you can have an HDMI connection. But really, you're better off these days just going with you know, just going with a Switch in general, unless there's a specific game you have to play on one of these. And Skyward Sword, I played a few others on this, I think, but Skyward Sword, you can now get that on the Switch, so no need to buy one of these unless you just want to have it. And what else could I say about this? Yeah, so I did buy an adapter so I could play with HDMI. I think the adapter ended up breaking, and I never got it sorted out, but I now have Skyward Sword on the Switch anyways, so that does not matter. And I think there was a door on the side of this. I forget which. Yeah, I think this, I should not be putting this on top of this. I'm not going to open this up today. Maybe I'll do that in a future video. But the side opens up and you can connect like GameCube controllers. And I think some of these were backwards compatible with GameCube. I forget which ones. But yeah, that's another story for another day. So over here, a much more interesting console. This is the TurboGrafx 16. So this is a little bit more rare as far as I know. So TurboGrafx 16, and it has these cartridges called HuCards, and the controller was not much more complicated than an old NES controller, but it was Yeah, so I'm holding my phone to record this with one hand, and I don't want to pop this out because I'll need two hands to pop this out. But see, that's basically like a card. It's a cartridge, but it's really thin. It's a thin card. It's like the size of a playing card that you slide in here. It's thicker, but it's about that size, and you slide that in there. They call them Hue cards. But that is Keith Courage in the Alpha Zones. That's one of the few games for this that I'm familiar with, and that was a terrific game. It was very unique and interesting. I enjoyed that game a lot. That was pretty cool, and had some really interesting music that still kind of plays in my head sometimes. But yeah, this is called, I believe, also it's called the PC Engine. I think that was the name for it in Japan, but I forget what the deal was with that. But this sat somewhere in between Nintendo and Super Nintendo. I think it was that like the CPU was 8-bit, but the graphics were 16-bit quality or something like that. I forget the exact technical details behind this. Yeah, the controller looks a little bit weird. You know what? I'm gonna just jump over here real quick and show you real quick. So yeah, big pile of controllers I gotta sort through and neaten up. But this was the TurboGrafx controller. It had this thing here. A little weird, but other than that, it's not much more complicated than a Nintendo controller. So yeah, so anyways, interesting console. Yeah, I'll have to dig into the technical details of that in a future video. I want to make a whole video. I want to make entire videos for each one of these consoles, but let's pan over here and ignore the two Game Boys up here for a moment. And right down here, this is a slimline PS2, so PlayStation 2. It's a basically next generation after the PlayStation 1. So this is the original PlayStation 1, but it's not the original. It's the body of it is remade, but it's still the same hardware inside. Basically, it basically plays the same games and stuff as the original PlayStation, but they called it the PS1. And this is a PlayStation 2, but this is the slimline version of the PlayStation 2. Hopefully the lighting is good. I'm getting a good shot of this. This is like a dark console and a dark background, and I do not have the bright lights turned on in the room that I'm in right now. But yeah, PS2 console, bought this back in 2005, and we brought this into a shop in New York City at the time that was able to install a mod chip in it for us. So we were able to like, yeah, so theoretically, if you were to burn CDs, you would be able to play them on this. You could burn CDs, you could download ISOs of your games and burn them to CD and play them on here. Theoretically, you could do that. This does have a mod chip, so if you did do that, you could play those kinds of games. Not saying that this was anything I was involved in, but like, or anyone I know was involved in, but you could do that with this console if you wanted to. Yeah, what else? This is a Game Boy Color. So yeah, this was great. Had a few different games for this, but the notable ones were Pokemon Blue and also Zelda Link's Awakening DX. So it was basically a version of Link's Awakening that was it was an upgraded version of it. They added color and they added another additional dungeon that required the use of color, so you could play it on the Game Boy Color. It's a terrific game. They've actually remade that for the Switch. I also have that one. Use some videos on both of those. But yeah, this thing between Zelda Link's Awakening and Pokemon Blue, this thing was incredible and gave me a lot of excellent use. Love this thing. Terrific console, and now it just sits here for sentimental value. And what else? Over here, Game Boy Advance SP. So the regular Advance did not flip, but let me see if I can do this holding my phone and flip this open at the same time. I'm gonna have to do a whole video just on this, but look at that, it flips open. So the SP flips open. The regular Game Boy Advance does not flip open. It's one solid piece. This thing was pretty neat. It kind of looks like, you know, it's the same look as like, you know, how a laptop flips open. But yeah, and cartridges would go in here. Now the cartridges were smaller on this thing, so, but you could still put old Game Boy Color and Game Boy, so this is like fully backwards compatible. You could still fit them in here, but they would be sticking out further. But the ones specifically made for Game Boy Advance would fit in there nicely. Either way, you could play both games on this. This was terrific. Got a lot of great use out of this. And also there was a Metroid remake for this that I played on this. One notable game that was pretty terrific on this. So played a few games on each of those. And in this shelf up here, a bunch of non-game related stuff. Yeah, like some ancient camera shell, some, you know, 3D printed bowls there. Anyways, so if we look down here, in this cabinet, I have some games. Like I got Pokemon Red, got Pokemon Blue, and what else? Zelda Oracle of Ages. That's another great one I got a lot of use out of. If I remember, I think this, see how it's worn out here? I think that's because of how it fit in the Game Boy Advance SP. I think that's what happened there, but I don't recall for sure. Dragon Age, I didn't find this to be the best game ever, but it was still kind of cool. It was just another game to have. This is the Metroid game I mentioned, Metroid Zero Mission, and notice how this one is a lot, you know, it's shorter than the full sized. Like this would be a Game Boy Color cartridge, and which is the same size as an original Game Boy cartridge, and this would be you know, a Game Boy Advance cartridge. And what else? We got Zelda. We got Zelda Link's Awakening, DX. So yeah, pretty terrific there. Got some other random things. Got a Nintendo GameCube memory card. Look at the discoloration on that. Wow, it looks like it was sticking out, and only this part that was sticking out got discolored by the light. And I believe that's what that's discolored from. Anyway, I think, what is this even? Another memory card of some type or another. And what else? Yeah, so this is the GameCube. Unfortunately, this got discolored. Now, I have another GameCube around here somewhere else that I bought for like $5 from a street vendor, which was pretty neat. You know, after the, you know, the whole thing in 2020, a lot more people, you know, people are losing their jobs and stuff, so people started selling things on the streets in New York City a lot more street vendors until the police cracked down on them. They sold all sorts of neat things like old laptops, old game consoles. I got some Xboxes for like a couple dollars or something. So like I have my Xbox 360 here, but I also have a couple more that I need to clean up. They're packed away in some bags. And I have another GameCube that I was taking apart and cleaning up, but it actually has the base underneath it that allows you to connect a Game Boy Advance to it, which is kind of neat. But this is my original GameCube that I had from way back a long time ago, back when it was a current system. So yeah, down here, what else? We got some, so these are some third-party Xbox controllers not made by Microsoft. They were cheap extra controllers that I could get to work with the Xbox many years later, that I just wanted to try it out and try some multiplayer games. But really, the controllers from the company that makes the console are usually going to be the better controllers. You don't want to get any of these fancy special controllers or anything like that. Just get the generic ones from the company that makes it. Usually that's what you want to go for. Anyways, here's my other closet here. Got a big mess of controllers down here. We'll come look at those in just a bit. And some consoles here, some older consoles, and some of them are older. And we got some games up here. A lot of these just cases, like my Switch. In another video, I showed the case that I keep my Switch games in. So these are just empty cases. I took all the cartridges out and put them in a carrying case. And I did another video about, you know, should you get digital downloads for Switch or not? And yeah, I prefer physical cartridges. I got a lot of old original Nintendo games in these plastic cartridges. This is from back when these were current. Got some like Sega Genesis games, and what else? Yeah, I don't want to mess with this pile too much, but pull this one out. This is worth looking at. Yeah, Zelda, original Zelda cartridge, and trying to do this with one hand here, but oh wow, look at that. So it's a little dirty, could use some cleaning, but yeah, original Legend of Zelda cartridge, the iconic gold colored cartridge, pretty neat. So there's that. Yeah, put that on top there. I have some manuals for like Zelda, Majora's Mask, and Ocarina of Time, a bunch of other stuff here. Oh, here's an interesting thing to show you. What else? Yeah, so Game Genie for the Nintendo, the original NES, Nintendo Entertainment System. So you would plug your game cartridge in here on this end, and then this end would plug into your Nintendo, and then when you turn it on, it will first boot into this Game Genie interface where you'd have to type in codes, and you'd have a little booklet that would tell you what code to type in to get what effects, and it would change the game. Like it would give you more lives, make you more invincible, give you all the items, stuff like that. It was pretty neat. It was an amazing thing to have, you know, because some games are difficult, especially when you're a kid, and this could help you cheat and get ahead and do stuff that you never were able to do. It was a lot of fun to have. Now, that's something for a whole other video by itself. Yeah, a lot of games here, like Fable 3, Halo 3, Halo 4, a lot of great stuff for Xbox. BioShock was another great one on Xbox. A lot of great games here. Tons of terrific stuff. Got my GameCube Twilight Princess and stuff. Lots of great stuff up there. that I just have that I'm holding on to. A lot of old documentation, like the manuals and, you know, maps and stuff from the original Zelda, stuff like that. So moving down here, we have, so on top here, Super Nintendo, but this is not the original design for the Super Nintendo. The original one I think looked a bit cooler, but this is a redesign. I don't know if it's slimmer or whatever. I'd have to look at them side by side, but it's a redesign. But this is what I was able to pick up on eBay, I think back in the year 1999 or 2000, somewhere around there. It was already an old console back then. Back then the N64 was current, N64 and PlayStation. Picked one of these up because I wanted it and I was into the old games. I just liked them. They weren't that old at the time. But anyways, also an NES. I think I have a couple of these. I forget where the other one is. From different places, like one was mine, one was my uncle's, one was one of my friends that I just happened to have in my basement. Dug these out of my parents' basement a few years back, and I've been keeping them at my place now. But notice this Nintendo, notice how the logo is wiped off there. So I was cleaning this thing up. It was dusty and dirty, and I was cleaning it with alcohol and some cotton swabs. And one thing to watch out for with these, if you clean the front of this with alcohol, it's going to wipe the logo off. That was a big mistake. That just kills me every time I see that now. Tried to clean it, but yeah, be careful. Don't wipe this with alcohol. It just ruins this thing. 30, 40, however many years it's been later. Like, yeah, I guess 30 years later or whatever, ruined the front of that. Either way, this thing is pretty scratched up and has lots of scratches and bumps and stuff on it, but at least like this part was looking good, and I ruined that. So yeah, be careful when you mess around with that. But yeah, games would load in here, then push the game in, push it down. You know, there's always the thing you would have to blow in the cartridge if it didn't work, it didn't have a good connection or whatever. Now, original Nintendo Entertainment System, or NES. Now over here, you'll notice we have the redesigned top loader. So this is the same thing as this, except this is a slimmer redesigned version where you top load the games. I think it might have had less connectivity issues when you slid the game in. You didn't have to worry about it having as good of a connection. One thing I remember, the Game Genie, when you slid it in here, it didn't make a good connection. I remember using a Dremel to cut some of the plastic edges on the Game Genie to get it to fit in there properly. Normal games would fit right, but the Game Genie had some trouble. So what else here? I have this retro duo thing here, and I guess it plays two different types of games. I have to look into this. I haven't tried this one out. I just picked this up, but someone was just getting rid of this. But I believe this plays Nintendo and Super Nintendo, or it might have been that one of these was Genesis. I forget which, and I haven't tried it or looked into it. They make much newer versions of this same thing. See, two things here for SNES controllers to connect to. You can connect an actual SNES controller, it looks like. So yeah, but it just has this output on the back. So it looks like this is relatively old. But yeah, that was, so notice the ports on the front of that match the Super Nintendo or SNES, not the NES, right? The controllers going on that thing. Now, here I just have some silly third-party dock for the Switch, dirty old thing that I don't think I've ever used. Now, I think I have a Sega CD here lower down. I think it's packed up. I'm going to see what's down. I have a lot of junk in there I have to organize. And yeah, I will be able to pull out the Sega CD. All right, so we'll look at that in just a bit. But before we get down there, I'm going to talk about this thing in the back. But before that, all right, Steam controller. I haven't taken this out of the box. I bought this when they were selling them for like $5 or something like that. So some super sale. I haven't had a chance to use it. Anytime I'm playing a PC game, I'm using keyboard and mouse. Just have not needed it. It looks pretty cool. I'm not completely sold on the design, but it's kind of a cool thing. And I bought it just because, you know, whatever. I'd like to try this out soon. Maybe I'll do a video on it. Maybe I'll end up using it, but yeah, we'll see. Anyways, Steam controller made by Valve. I don't know if they still make them anymore. I haven't looked into that. So interesting thing here. Remember we looked at the Sega Genesis before, 16-bit system? Well, the Sega Genesis had a CD system where you could connect the Sega Genesis to a CD system. The Sega CD I have down there, I'll show you that in a minute. But right here, we have this thing. Now, this thing is basically a Sega Genesis combined with a Sega CD in one solid piece. So if you see on the left here, right here, this thing, that is where you would slide in a cartridge, and over here is where you'd put CDs. And so, yeah, it looks a little bit weird design. It's hard to tell this apart from like a DVD player or a VCR or something, some old piece of junk from the 90s. But this is actually I think it's kind of rare. I don't think it's anything that special or anything, but it's a JVC XI multi-entertainment system, but it's basically a Sega Genesis combined with a Sega CD, which is pretty cool. They had, I guess Sega had some deal with JVC. I forget this deal behind that. I'll have to do a whole video on this console, especially if there's interest in it. If people, comment on this and give me lots of thumbs up, and if people like this type of video, I'll do more of these if I can. What else? Yeah, I think these are popular videos that people like to hear about, like old consoles, retro gaming, and hardware and stuff. So before we look at these controllers and stuff, I'm gonna go down here because we were just talking about the Sega Genesis. Now this seriously needs some organizing. So in here I have a couple Xboxes packed away in these bags. I got to deal with those. I think I have my GameCube and taken apart in here. Yeah, the second GameCube I bought for like $5, not my original. Got to put that back together and clean it up. Some old cables and stuff. I have a PlayStation 4 in one of those. I'm not going to take that out. Bunch of cables and connectors, but let's pull this one out just to see it. This thing here is a Sega CD. Let me see if I can hold my camera right. Okay, so see on the left side there, that is where you would connect the Sega Genesis. So the whole console, the whole Sega Genesis console gets mounted on the left, and see on the right here is the CD. Is the CD drive. So that's a Sega CD. It's basically a CD drive for the Sega Genesis. And see, it would get connected with this little, see that little connector there? That's where it would plug into it. So you plug your Sega Genesis into this Sega CD, and you have CD capabilities and play CD-based games, which CDs could hold a whole lot more data than cartridges could at the time. That's not true anymore. Modern cartridges, like on the Switch, hold more, but at the time CDs could hold a lot more, so you'd have better quality games and have some of the really early 3D games, which were pretty terrible, but at the time it was revolutionary. Anything in 3D looked amazing. So especially when the N64 came out with Mario, with N64, without Mario 64, that actually, it looks terrible by today's standards. You're like, oh, it looks so horrible, but back then it was like amazingly, ridiculously amazing graphics. It looks so real, just the way it popped out, because people weren't used to 3D technology back then. People were used to 2D stuff. So at the time it was pretty amazing. So anyways, last but not least, I guess let's talk about controllers here. I'm not sure how deep I'm going to dig into these controllers. I'm going to go through a few on the surface here and then call it quits. So over here, and this is going to be a separate video, I have Starlink game for Switch, and it came with these characters. I guess they're kind of like amiibos, and it comes with a ship and all these add-ons. I didn't use that. I'm going to make a video on that. I'm going to make a video on the game and on all that stuff soon. I'm not going to take that out, but I'm going to do a whole video on that, or I'm planning to anyways. That's coming up, but for now, we're going to put that away. But I played the game without that up until now. I probably should have tried it out first, but yeah, you get all these like physical add-ons that you add onto this thing, and then when you clip them on here, you actually get them in the game. Anyways, okay, so let's look at controllers. Retro Duo. This is basically a less good clone of a Super Nintendo controller that would work with that Retro Duo up there. We've got PS2 controller here. These pads had lots of they don't feel too bad, but they got I think it's silicone or whatever, but it's starting to break down. And this is really dusty and needs to be cleaned, but it gets sticky. It's breaking down and getting sticky. The other buttons are pretty fine, but that's getting sticky. Over here, we have an original PlayStation controller, and the pads on these sticks are really sticky. They're pretty messed up and gross. I don't know what I would do about them, if I can clean them or whatever. The other buttons are totally fine. And yeah, so there's that. Yeah, we looked at the TurboGrafx 16 controller. GameCube controller was and this is also doing that same thing, that sticky thing on this thing and on here. But yeah, GameCube controller was really probably one of the weirder controllers I've ever used, but it's really, really nice. It fits nicely in your hand, and just the way the buttons, they're not all the same, right? See on this, all just round buttons. Usually they're all going to be all the same size round buttons. I think this is a nice scheme. The main one button you're going to be using more than the others, and then you're going to have a secondary button, then 2 extra buttons at the top for extra items or abilities or whatever. And this was pretty good. Only downside to it like you had the L and R buttons, but only one Z button. Improvement to this would be in like the Switch. You have you know, 2 trigger buttons, like one on each, 2 on each side. Here you have 1 on each side and then an extra, I guess, trigger button here. But that's like a carryover from the N64, which we'll show you. I have a few N64 controllers here. I'm going to show you this one. So the N64 controller was a little weird, coming from people who are used to like, you know, Super Nintendo style PlayStation, or, you know, old Nintendo. We'll show you an old Nintendo controller, but coming from traditional game pads, this was really weird. It had these 3 things, given it was an early 3D controller, so people were trying new things out. But if you wanted like a traditional controller, you could hold it over here and your other hand would go over here. Or if you wanted something that's better for 3D games, you'd use the stick and you'd hold it in the middle instead of on the side. So instead of like a, yeah, it was different from like with the PlayStation. Sure, you had this old style pad here, but you at least had this stick here, and you had another stick here, which was kind of important. Somehow they got around without having that on the Nintendo. Anyways, yeah, so two analog sticks on that, only one in here. This worked out very well. This looks weird holding it in the middle like this, but it actually worked out pretty well in practice. And this was an excellent controller and worked really great. It looks weird and practical. At the time it looked weird, and in modern times it still looks weird, but it actually worked out very nicely. And got a lot of use out of these Mario games, Zelda games, all sorts of other games. I remember playing Tony Hawk Pro Skater, and my thumb felt like I thought I had permanently damaged my thumb from using this so much. But anyways, yeah, it's totally fine. So you'll notice only a single L button and a single R button on here, but you'll notice there's a Z button on the bottom. So that Z button is what was carried over into the GameCube controller. So let's see here. Yeah, so that's why you had that extra Z button on the GameCube controller. Now you'll notice this is actually right here. This is another, so this is a third-party GameCube controller. Notice, oh, this is a little weird. So this has a L and R, and it has a Z button, but it has an extra Z button on it over here, which you did not have on the original GameCube controller. So that is, yeah, so that's something that's interesting there. And what else do we have here? Oh man, I should keep these better. We have a, you know, for the Wii, for the Fit game, for the Switch, we have this Ring Fit. We have the Ring over here. Haven't used that in a while. What else do we have in here? We have this Moga controller. I'm not going to take this out. Some parts of it have started to melt. It did not age well, but this was to connect to I might do a video on this, but there are better alternatives now. This you can connect to a phone and play games on your phone with an actual gamepad. It was kind of nice. I actually love that thing. This is a Super Nintendo controller. Note the difference between that and this one, the Retro Duo, right? So Super Nintendo controller, really nice controller. Just an L and R button on it. This is the next step up from the NES controller. Really terrific. Love the color scheme. I believe the Japanese version of this had like red, green, and blue, and I think yellow buttons on it. I forget. I'd have to look it up, but I don't have any of those. They kind of looked nice, and feels like a good way to do it, but somehow just the 2 tones of purple on this made me feel like this was like a fancy controller, like it was nice, like coming from this old simple NES and jumping up to a Super Nintendo, that the gray and purple color combo, especially when you had 2 shades of purple like this, just that color combo made it seem like it was more like a premium and a nice thing, at least in my head, right? And, you know, going from, you know, being used to a Nintendo and jumping up to a next generation, like I was used to this before the Super Nintendo came out, so I remember when the Super Nintendo was a next generation console, and when it did come out as a next generation console, you know, this made it seem like more premium and more fancy to me in my head at the time. I remember I wanted one so bad, but I couldn't have one at the time because I was only 10 years old. But yeah, by today's standards, it's ancient, but yeah, I remember when it was the new next gen console. What else do we have here digging in my pile of controllers? Oh, and you know what, let's bring this out here. So before we even look at another one, yeah, so the original GameCube controller, originals are almost always better than something made by a third party. This one's made by Nintendo. Notice one Z button. So you have R, L, and one Z button. That Z button being the holdover, for being the carryover or whatever from the N64 controller, right? And that third party GameCube controller, for whatever reason, has two Z buttons. Strange. Now, the funny thing, they have the L and R button on the Switch controller, but they also have the L and R Z buttons. They still have the word Z in it, even on the modern Switch controller. I'll have to show you that in just a bit. But let's take a look at an original NES controller. So original NES, very simple, up, down, left, right. You had select, start, B, and A, and that was it. Very, very simple for simple 8-bit games. This is an iconic design, very beautiful iconic design. I have a few of these still in the plastic wrap that I just happened to come upon over the years. And what else do we have here? So this is the thing that I connected my Wii to HDMI. Oh, this is just the plastic case for it. I guess it is completely broken. Okay, Xbox 360 controller. Another old Nintendo controller. At the time, it seemed like wow, this needs to be cleaned up. Seemed like a good idea. They had these things they gave away, these stickers you could put on them to make them look nicer. At the time, we thought it was, but now it looks terrible compared to the actual original iconic design. Remember this one under here with this circuit design that's really worn out? That was my controller. Like, we each had a controller that we used, and this one was mine. Mine was the one with this sticker on it. So that is mine. You know, I guess it kind of has some sentimental value. And if I want one with the original iconic design, that's this. I have this here, and I have a few in plastic wrap still. Got another one sitting right here that's basically brand new. I don't know if anyone's ever used it. These are just things I dug out of my parents' basement. And I'm not going to dig too much out of here, but I did want to dig this light gun out of here. So I have a couple of these in here. This is the Nintendo Zapper. It's a light gun from 1985, and you could play Duck Hunt with this. And there were a few other games, I think, with this, but not too many. But it was a pretty cool gun. It works with CRTs, you know, the old tube TVs. Pull the trigger, and it shoots light at the screen, and it allows you to play some neat games on the Nintendo. So that was pretty neat. I don't think I'm going to dig too much deeper in here for controllers. I have some other interesting controllers, like I have this. This was for the Switch, but this is not wireless. This requires to be... Oh, great. All right, yeah. So this has to be physically plugged in. It's a nice design. It's not as good as the Pro controller. It was cheaper, and it has to be physically plugged in. It's not a wireless controller. See how here they have the L and R, and then they have ZL and ZR. That's what I'm talking about with the Switch controller. They still call it Z, but they have two of them now in modern days. So what else? What else do we have here that I wanted to cover? Nothing super... Oh, there's a few things. Okay, so I should show you Genesis. So Sega Genesis controller, same generation as the Super Nintendo, a lot more simple. This was more geared towards action games, as I understand it, and it just had 3 buttons, A, B, and C. Yeah, all in a row like that. So there's simple, easy to hit, really fast action buttons there. What else? I wanted to show you this thing right here. This is such a mess. I have to get this stuff organized. But for now, at least I can show you. This was the redone Nintendo controller. So it came along, see, the original Nintendo controller, like this, came along with the original Nintendo right here. But this redone Slimline controller goes along with the Slimline top loader Nintendo. Now, given you could switch either controller between either of these because the plug is the same on both of them, but just a redesigned Nintendo controller that came with the Nintendo. Wow, this is such a mess in here. I really should have cleaned this up maybe before doing this video. Okay, so this thing is the Ouya controller. This one was a serious piece of junk. It works, and you can actually use it as a Bluetooth controller. It's a pretty standard controller, very similar to the Xbox 360 controller, except it's a piece of junk, and it does work as a Bluetooth controller with a tablet. I used this to play games like retro games on an Android tablet a while back. It was really hard to pull these faceplates off to replace the batteries in it. Big pain, piece of junk that goes with the stupid piece of junk Ouya console, which is kind of sad that it died, but also not that big of a deal. This thing, I think, is a game system by itself. I'm not sure. I haven't looked into what this is, but it's just something I picked up at one point. Not a popular or significant piece of gaming history. I also have these third-party, things. You would put a Nintendo Switch, you know, the Joy-Cons in here, and you could play Mario Kart with an actual steering wheel. That was pretty cool. The rest of these, nothing else unique in here. I do have this third-party Super Nintendo Pro Pad where you could turn in like rapid fire, so you just hold the button down and it's like you're tapping it really fast for cheating, which is fine. So there are some reasons to get third-party controllers like that, but usually you're better off with the normal one. We have a few other things in here. We have some boring Logitech. Deep in there, we have this Logitech PC controller, which I actually thought was pretty nice, a gamepad for PCs. And I think that's mostly all the interesting things in here, right? Let me see, is there anything else to cover today? You know, let's just talk briefly about Nintendo Switch. Doing a lot of Nintendo Switch these days. So yeah, Xbox 360 controller and the very similar Nintendo Switch Pro controller. Notice ZL and ZR, and then just the L and R buttons. You know, it's got the plus and minus. It's got a home button and a screenshot button on it. A whole bunch of stuff, you know, so it's got some extra buttons, and it's got all the standard buttons you'd expect on a modern controller. Not very dissimilar to, not too dissimilar to a Xbox 360 controller. And what else here? So I guess since I'm doing consoles and stuff, I'm gonna pan the camera down this way and come right over here to my incredibly messy desk here. Got a couple more Switch controllers because I wanted to be able to play 4-player Smash Brothers. But in any case, 3 switches here. These are the OLED switches. So I did show you back in my cabinet, I had my original Switch, which was not OLED. And then I came back and showed you these real quick. So 3 OLED switches. So they go for like $350 each usually. And these days, but the original Switch went for $300 because it wasn't OLED. Anyways, or OLED or whatever, right? So that's the Switch. Comes with Joy-Cons. I've been through quite a few Joy-Cons. If you see here, so you can hold it. You can actually, and the other one is basically the same deal, right? But so Nintendo Switch has. This. I don't know how I can't do this with one hand while holding a camera at the same time. Yeah, so same idea. They're removable, so you can play the Switch like this. You can take it out and just hold the whole thing like that, or you can dock it. You can have it. You can take it out and still remove the controllers, or you can dock it and remove the controllers. And you can play with them one in each hand, and it seems awkward at first when you're not used to it, but it's actually completely fine and no big deal. I actually kind of like holding them separately like that. Once you get used to not having your hands together like you would with a traditional gamepad, it is not a big deal. And you get used to it after a while. Each Switch does come with a little thing where you can clip the 2 Joy-Cons into it. Generally, if you're going to hold, the Pro controllers are still better, although the Joy-Cons by themselves are pretty excellent. They're not bad at all. I don't mind them, but yeah, Pro controllers is still better. Please excuse my incredibly messy desk here. What else? Yeah, so the Joy-Cons have an issue where they will drift. So after a while, even though you're not moving in any direction with the joystick thing here, it doesn't matter. It'll start to either go left or maybe it'll start going right, depending on which way it's drifting, and your character will just walk in that direction, and it's really, really annoying. And it's said to be, it could be like dust that got underneath it, or sometimes it's actually something else is wrong with it, and it's possible to fix it yourself. I haven't looked into doing that, and at one point Nintendo was letting you send these back and get it fixed or replaced, but it's a pain. I've had that happen with a few. It just keeps happening with a lot of them. I haven't had to deal with it in a while, but I've gone through a few different pairs of Joy-Cons, which are relatively expensive to replace. Also, these are kind of expensive as controllers go, but part of that is just because these are expensive compared to PlayStation or Xbox controllers, but also in modern times, things are just getting more and more expensive anyways. I'm not sure compared to like a PS5 or, an Xbox Series X controller, are these really more, I don't know how much those go for these days because I don't have either of those as of yet, but So there's the Joy-Con drift thing. Supposedly with the with these with the Pro controllers, you don't get Joy-Con. Well, I haven't had it, and generally you don't. You can avoid it with that, but supposedly it's possible to have there are cases where people have had drift with those too, but it's not a common thing and not something to usually worry about. But it is pretty common with these. Don't be surprised if it happens, and it might go away on its own, or you might have to replace them. So there's that. Other thing I'd like to point out here, I have this I have this nice this case for holding. I did a whole separate video on this a while back, but I have this nice case for Switch games. I have all my cartridges in here, and this holds a lot more than that too. I'm gonna try to remember to put the link for this in the description, where you can pick this up on Amazon if you wanted to. Also, I have another thing over here. I've got this another case. It's smaller, holds fewer games. So yeah, a few games in there. I figured this is great for traveling. So if I lose it, I only lose a few games. Bring the ones I'm going to be switching between most often with that, and keep my big collection over here, right? So there's that. And what else do we have here? Another interesting thing to show you. So I've recently been recording some content for my Switch. Now, and again, excuse my incredibly messy desk here, but this thing is the Elgato HD60X, and look at that HD60X. This is for so it has one HDMI port going in and one going out, and then you have a USB cable that goes to your PC, and so I connect that to my one of my switches here, and it will display. It passes it goes in one out the other and connects to this monitor above here, and so you can play on that monitor while also passing that data, capturing the data and passing it over the USB cable to my PC over here, where I then capture I can capture it with OBS and record the data. You can record it or stream it, but this is an incredibly excellent device for streaming. So I've been recording videos of me playing stuff on my Switch with this thing. So you combine this with, I don't even bother with the software they provide you or any other software. Just get the generic open source OBS software, and that works great for recording this. So so there's that, and I've been recording that on my PC, editing it, and posting those up on YouTube. So you'll see those videos on this channel. That's how I got the better quality videos on this channel. I had this other device here. So this was, I don't think I'm allowed to mention the prices if I put the link to it in Amazon, but it's not bad. It's well worth it. I'm so glad I spent the money on this. This one was significantly cheaper. This is a piece of junk capture card. This one was really cheap on Amazon. It was a little laggy, and I never got the sound to work on this. For some people it works. For me it didn't. Some people it doesn't work at all. Some people had issues with it. Most people did not have issues with it, but it's gonna be a little laggy. This thing, no lag, and the sound works right out of the box. So that worked great with OBS. You still have to know how to configure the software for OBS, but which is also worth spending the time doing if you want to stream or record your console gaming sessions. But this was way better and worth spending the money on, which is what I picked up. So yeah, there's that, and I think that's the last thing I wanted to show you. So hopefully you found this stuff interesting. You might want to give me a thumbs up, leave a comment down below if you have your own experience with like old gaming consoles or new gaming consoles, or anything you want to say. Leave a comment down below, give me a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button for more content like this, hit the little bell icon. That's about it for today. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys on that next video.